A year we did not expect. A new normal we could never predict. The coronavirus hit businesses globally. More livelihoods than lives were lost during the pandemic. But what if we could imagine a new day? A day when businesses are back in business, when employees return to work, customers are back happily, when kids go back to school. Imagine a day when you don't have to imagine that day, it's already here. Introducing a revolutionary first of its kind life-saving technology with up to 99.9% efficacy in neutralizing the coronavirus. The Shycocan. Invented by an Indian scientist, Dr. Raja Vijay Kumar, who holds over 30 inventions including the Cytotron, a simple plug-and-play wall-mounted device. The Shycocan emits photons that form an electron cloud in an indoor space. The negative charged electrons neutralize the positive charge of the coronavirus, thereby disabling it from infecting a person. No chemicals, no UV rays, no side effects, completely non-toxic and 100% safe for humans, animals and the environment. It also disables the entire coronavirus family of viruses. Each device covers an area of approximately 1000 square feet indoors and consumes just as much electricity monthly as a small 40-watt light bulb. A one-time installation, no consumables like filters, solutions, etc. Plus, expert consultation to custom fit your requirements. A global service and support network including 100 plus Indian cities with an unbeatable replacement warranty. The Shycocan will keep you safe. The Shycocan has been proven to be up to 99.9% effective against the coronavirus across multiple and the most stringent virology lab test reports. It has already been installed by several organizations like the Tatas, Finicus and Cello, besides the Indian Defence Forces among others. Let's make your business safe for you, your employees and your customers. Let's bring business back to business today. Log on to shycocancorp.com for inquiries.
Thank you. Good evening and a warm welcome to my distinguished panelists and participants to the webinar Empowering Education Institutions to Reopen Safely, brought to you by Shycocan Corporation. We just had a brief intro about them. They're the global licensee of the Shycocan device, the world's first virus attenuation device that can disable the entire coronavirus family in indoor spaces with up to 99.9 efficacy. This webinar is being brought to you in association with Education World. Let me begin by introducing Alok Sharma, CEO of Shycocan Corporation, an alum of IIT BHU. Alok earlier served as Managing Director of Apple India. He's also been part of the leadership team at Sun Microsystems India and ASEAN, and also worked with Wipro. Since 2009, he's turned entrepreneur and has co-founded the APAD Manufacturing Parks, a joint venture with the government of Andhra Pradesh, and also Nature Eco Ventures. He's also a member of the Indian Angel Network and has invested across many sectors. Alok, over to you.
Thanks, Soumya. Just a few words to kick off this discussion. I think the first thing which is important to all of us is actually the students or the children. A child not having to meet their friends, not able to go to school every day, having to sit in front of the screens. Imagine a childhood like that. I think it's quite, I would say, frightening. My elder daughters, both my daughters are in college, and they've been at home, I think, for the last 2 years, virtually studying, missing the whole campus life. I remember my college life, I think, was the best. And imagine if they are missing out so much on learning with their peers, how much is a child missing out who would love to go in the playground? And this coronavirus is here to stay for some time at least. It's getting a lot of variants out. Influenza continues to be a big problem for children on its own. So viruses have always interfered with children's education for a long time. So I think there is a need for a new category of technology, because vaccination is right now, at least across all countries, most countries, less than 12 years is not there. In India, vaccination is not there. Schools have to reopen. Children cannot continue to be from home. So we need technology to add and create safety. Now, this safety can come up with a device which is absolutely safe for the children, leaves the environment as it is, but does not allow the transmission of the virus in that space. So if a child is sick, then another child will not get sick in that environment. And we can really bring our children back to school. And such a device is called a viral defense device. So I think there's a new need for new category of devices. And if you ask me, Shycocan is the only device that has been built grounds up to do this. And it was built before the pandemic. It was actually built by 2018 after 10 years of research to prevent against viral attacks. Little did we know that at that time, such a thing would happen in our lifetimes. So just as an introduction, I think we need to get our children back to school. The teachers are overworking, trying to cope up both their homes, their own children's education, as well as teaching children online. The schools are obviously, having financial issues where children are dropped out. There is 168 million children across the globe that have actually dropped out of education, especially from children who are in lower income groups. So I think there's a lot to be done here. And if we can make a small contribution towards working with the community, that'll be great. So thank you. Soumya, you are on mute.
Soumya, you are on mute.
Sorry. Okay. That's why we need to reopen our schools. Imagine every day teachers muting and unmuting themselves. Anyway, let me begin by introducing our stellar cast of panelists. Dr. Joseph Emmanuel, he's the director of the Central Board of Secondary Education, CBSE, ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, is India's largest national exams board with over 25,000 affiliated schools countrywide. Dr. Emmanuel, warm welcome to you. Our next panelist is Dr. Mufazzal Lakrawala. Dr. Mufi, as he's popularly known, is a well-known laparoscopic GI and bariatric surgeon, and he serves as the director of surgery at Sir H.N. Reliance Foundation Hospital and Research Center, Mumbai. He's also the founder of the Digestive Health Institute. He's conducted more than 50,000 laparoscopic surgeries in India and abroad. And in the wake of the COVID-19 crisis, Dr. Mufi volunteered his time, skills, and expertise as an advisor with the Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai to set up and administer jumbo facilities for COVID positive patients. Dr. Mufi, warm welcome. And thank you for the service you're doing to the nation. Our next panelist is Dr. Swati Popat-Vats. Swati is president of the Early Childhood Association of India. It has a membership of over 38,000 preschools countrywide. She's also the president of the Association for Primary Education Research and the president of the Podar Jumbo Kids chain of preschools across the country. Swati, always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And Dr. Ashok Pandey. Dr. Ashok Pandey is director of the CBSE affiliated Alcon Public School and Alcon International School. They both are in Delhi, in the national capital. They both have an aggregate enrollment of over 5,500 students. Dr. Pandey was also chairperson of the National Progressive Schools Conference. He's a Teach SDGs ambassador. Dr. Pandey, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Soumya.
And Neha Kanakbar is the founder of Unimo, Universe of Moms, and a manifestation coach. Neha is the founder, like I said, of Universe of Moms. This is the largest community of moms with 500,000 digitally connected moms on Facebook and WhatsApp. She's also a global lead for Facebook Community Leadership Circles, and recently she was featured in the ET Young Newsmakers India 40 under 45 list. Neha, warm welcome to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Of course, also joining us on this panel is Alok Sharma, whom I introduced earlier, the CEO of Shycocan Corporation. So let me just briefly set a context for this debate. As we all know now, almost 16, 17 months since the COVID-19 pandemic struck India, and there's been a comprehensive lockdown of all campuses, classrooms. Over 2 million preschools have been shut, 1.5 million primary, secondary schools have been shut, and over 1,000 universities and 40,000 colleges have also been shut. So the aggregate enrollment of children and youth in these universities and schools and colleges is over 320 million. And the damage suffered by the largest child and youth population by way of loss of learning during the past 60 weeks, which by the way is the longest shutdown of education institution worldwide, is huge and unprecedented. And if we contrast this to Russia's 13 weeks, China's 27, France only 12, and South Africa 37, this is like the longest lockdown of schools worldwide. Now, as a few state governments cautiously reopen for secondary classes, over the next 1 hour, we'll be discussing how education institutions can be empowered to reopen with adequate safety guards. Dr. Emmanuel, let me begin with you. Several surveys have highlighted that online education has been not very effective. In fact, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Education has said that 70% of children have had no access to education over the past year. How can a balance be struck between child safety and the right of children to receive in-person education?
Thank you, Soumya. All my eminent colleague panelists, Dr. Mufassal, Dr. Swati, Dr. Ashok Pandey, Ms. Neha, and Mr. Bhavin Shah, Mr. Alok Sharma, and all those who are listening me on this platform. Good evening to all of you. So let me thank and congratulate Education World to come up with this webinar with the very relevant theme of today. And it has been almost 1.5 years, more than 1.5 years, as Soumya has rightly pointed out, that our schools are completely locked down and they are functioning either digitally or informally. The learning as usual is not happening in our institutions. And there is a huge learning gap in the institutions, the learners, that is very visible. And it is not only in India, it is across the world. And the world over, more than 150 crore students who are very badly affected by this pandemic. And this situation is unprecedented. And as technology is helping a lot in tiding over the difficulties, but there is a need to create an environment, as Mr. Alok Sharma has very rightly introduced a new technology for preventing of virus spread in the classrooms. This kind of technological interventions should definitely come to create that enabling environment to bring back the students to the classrooms. Till then, we can't compel anybody, because right to life is the most important aspect, and learning will happen if you are alive. So, the life of every child is very important. Though there is learning gap, according to the national or the state disaster management committee, wherever situation is under control and conducive, where state governments will open the schools and accordingly they can come back to the schools. Till then, the blended way of learning should continue. That is the norm of the hour or the norm of the day. But to reduce the learning gap, as educators and school leaders, all of us have a special role to play. So the principles of active learning should be brought in. Every teacher and every educator should actively involved in the learning of the child, to know the child, to know the learning level, and the children who are at high risk level, they should be reached out. that kind of an effort should be made by every educator and reaching out to every child and minimize the learning loss. That should be an effort made by every institution. Because of the COVID, there is a digital divide, all of us are aware. And children from the low socio-economic background, they are affected the most. Children with adequate digital equipments and connectivity, their learning loss is comparatively less. But children who are at the remotest part of the country, at different part of the world, where there is no digital connectivity, where the teachers are not able to reach out to them, and they are not at all in touch with the teachers and the institutions, there the learning gap is very high and learning loss is very high. And in that kind of a situation, every educator responsible for teaching those kind of children should reach out to them, and somehow either digitally or telephonically or by organizing mobile classrooms, somehow to be in touch with those children is very, very essential to reduce the learning level and learning gap. So this is at-risk children. Reaching out to those children are very, very important. So bringing them to the classroom again depends upon the pandemic, the spread of the pandemic and the prevailing circumstances in the locality. But if the circumstances allow, if the government allows, they can be called to this school, and informal and formal classes can be arranged. But till then, informal way, at least the teachers should reach out to them and reduce the learning gap. That should be a very emergent and urgent need, which I feel. And for opening of the school,
Dr. Emmanuel, I wanted to, ask you if CBSE has made any plans or any, future recommendations to schools to empower them to reopen safely. If you could briefly tell us.
From the CBSE side, we have already given guidelines to the institutions. From the ministry side, for opening guidelines have been issued to the schools by following the COVID protocol. Depending upon the situation prevailing in their locality and permission of the state government, they can reopen. They can call students of board examination classes to carry on with their education, particularly the practical activities and lab activities. So, strictly follow the guidelines. That is the bottom line and thumb rule. And they should not take, the life of children at risk. Every school should follow the COVID protocol and safety guidelines. And if technology allows, if they can afford technology, all the technological measures should be adopted and created in the school system to provide a safe environment to these students. So by following COVID protocol to the extent possible in a staggered way without crowding the classroom, by strictly following the COVID guidelines and guidelines of the local government, they can call the students and give remedial teaching as well as lab activities and practical experiments and all. So this board has already supported the schools, and guidelines have been issued. And there are guidelines, Prakyada guidelines are there for the learning enhancement guidelines from the NCERT. It is available. COVID safety guidelines have been issued by the Ministry of Education. All those guidelines will help the schools to plan their reopenings. So if the situation is normal, if the situation is conducive and safe, then they can think about.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Emmanuel. Unfortunately, he has to leave us shortly because he has a meeting with the Education Ministry, a very important meeting. But nevertheless, we thank you very much for being with us and offering your very insightful comments.
Thank you, Soumya, and thank you all the panelists and listeners on this platform. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. We have our first poll question for our participants. I'd also like to tell all our viewers that we're live on Facebook on Education World India, and we have over 500 people watching us live there right now. And now let me come to you, Dr. Mufi. The scientific evidence seems to suggest that COVID-19 rarely makes children very ill. For instance, I recently read that there's a report which says that the chance of an American child aged 5 to 14 catching and dying from the virus is about 1 in 500,000, which is roughly a tenth of a child's chance of dying in a traffic accident in normal times. What do you have to say about that? Even in India, AIMS, the Indian Pediatric Association, all are saying reopen schools and colleges.
Sir, you need to unmute.
Thank you, Soumya. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me on this talk. Thank you, Education World. And all I need to say is that we've got around more than 2.2 billion children across the world. That makes almost close to 17-18% of its population. And if you look at the age span between 10 to 19, again, we've got around at least 14-15%. Now, we come to COVID and its facts, right? Yes, the fact is that when COVID hit every kind of world, every kind of city, place of the world locked down. For the first time ever in our lifetime, at least, we've seen the entire world kind of locked down. And what was the most affected were kids, because school shut down, and in a way it kind of protected them, because the first wave at least, and a part of the second wave, because the schools were shut down, there were very, very few chances of the kids interacting with one another and getting the COVID themselves, unless their parents got home and gave it to them. So the fact of the matter remains that yes, kids have been proven to be the least vulnerable of the lot. The older age bracket, those who are obese, those who've got various comorbidities, are at the lowest end of the pecking order, if you were to call it that way. But kids have been the most protected. Yes, there have been very, very few and extremely rare complications in terms of MISC syndromes and Kawasaki syndromes, which have caused that. But you are quite correct with your stats and figures that kids are the least vulnerable. But why kids were vulnerable, those who did get it, is that they showed very, very mild symptoms, because the chemical receptors that they have compared to adults were much less, which has been proven and documented medically. As at the same time, their immunity was far higher because of the common respiratory viruses that they would often interact and get at school. And therefore, they were more protected. Now, the problem was that if a kid got it, there was a higher chance in the beginning that the kid gave it to the older grandparents at home, and that would in turn result at probably not that favorable an outcome for someone much older at home. But the flip side of this whole thing is that, like you said, this is the first time ever that schools have shut down for such long periods. And what has it had on the effect of kids? Well, it has not affected them physically, but now we've got enough of documentary evidence that it's affected them mentally. So it might have saved them physically, but what about the long-term mental scars that these year and a half or longer of lack of education, which we've known of. We've known of physical education from the time we at least were born, and suddenly switching on to online. I don't think our kids at least are ready for that yet. There was a paper from Zhongren La from China, as because this whole COVID pandemic kind of started in China. And what this paper really did said is that when they surveyed the kids in schools, they found that 1 out of 5 kids had PTSD, and 1 out of 14 kids had depression. Another survey from Li, again from China, and his group actually said that kids with learning difficulties like ASDs, attention deficit disorders, and various other things, where there were special schools to train these kids, were absolutely left high and dry without any physical education. So when we come to that, even in India, our surveys in India have shown that this kind of staying away from school has led to kids, the childhood marriages increasing, childhood labor increasing. And so these are invisible scars that we are dealing with kids. And you all are all educational on this panel other than me, who would know that the long-term effects, it will take some time for us to get off. We will recover financially, we will recover from the physical and the health pandemic, but are we going to, this is going to be a longer term pandemic to deal with in terms of kids. Another thing that we must realize is that as we open up, right, as schools have opened up, and we now do know that schools, at least in Punjab, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Delhi, have opened up, like Dr. Emmanuel said, that Delhi schools have just opened up after a meeting with the disaster management cell and the LG and the chief minister. But in Maharashtra, we opened up schools in small parts in July and now in August. What they've noticed is that the schools that opened up, and through the survey given out to all the parents, more than 90% said that they would want their kids to go back to physical schooling. But what happened in reality is when the schools did open in small pockets, you saw that there was only 34% of schools that were allowed to be open, but still only 34% of the schools actually opened, despite 100% in those pockets being allowed to open. As far as the kids who are allowed to go to school, only 10% of these kids actually went to school, though they were allowed to go to school. So 90%, either the parents or the kids themselves chose not to go to school. And what happened in August, there was just a mild increase from the hitherto 34% to a 38% rise in the number of schools. And the children went from 10% to 14%. So we do believe that there is something there. Maybe the kids have got so used to not going back to schooling and have become comfortable with their online schooling that they don't want to go back. And that's something we need, y'all educationalists really need to look at. Another thing that we need to know is that when do we really start? Because I think when we start, we have got SOPs in place. You know, the CDC guidelines clearly said that there were respiratory conditions that they put in, like masks and various other things. There was hand hygiene, which we all do know how to follow, especially in areas where the kids sit down to eat together. The classrooms are the least risky population, you must understand, because that's where the teacher can enforce social distancing guidelines and various other things, and they can ask the kids to behave. It's in the bathrooms and in the areas where the kids are going to play or eat that you'll have to be very careful. Another thing that I do believe, like Maharashtra set out these guidelines in their SOPs for schools to reopen, is they've said there has to be double vaccination for all the teaching staff as well as the non-teaching staff. And that's where they're trying to head to, and that I think is the correct thing. I think what they've not probably put down in the guidelines is that we need something like a green pass, which is easily possible right now. And I'm one of those guys who wants to promote a concept of a QR code based pass, which kind of surveys some of the symptoms which your parents need to fill in. For example, if you have fever, the parent needs to put that in so that you don't risk the other school kids just because your kid. I think enforcing masks at school would again prevent us from getting a lot of.
Dr. Murphy, I'll come back to you to give your solutions, and you could talk about this green pass a bit later. I'd just like to draw in for the initial comments all our panelists. Swati, I'd like to come to you now. In many countries abroad, have first reopened pre-primary and primary schools, given the high importance of foundational early childhood education. In India, we haven't done this. We're not even 16 months down the line talking about, reopening our preschools and primary schools. What is the impact of this, complete neglect of EC on youngest children?
Thank you, Sumaya. Thank you for this question, because early years is something that we ignore heavily in this country in everything. Whether it's our policies, whether it's anything, we think last of our children. Whereas if you notice in the other countries, they never closed down the daycares and preschools. Only when the pandemic had hit their waves did they close it down. So whether it's Australia, America, UK, they all kept their daycares on, because otherwise, where would these frontline workers leave their children? Who would look after their children? And that was a decision that was taken by all these countries. Now, we have a center in UAE, and it has been functioning since the start of the pandemic, on and off, but with proper guidelines given by the government, which means bubbles, etc. And fingers crossed, we've not had a single case till now. So it is very, very important to understand that we cannot have this ostrich attitude when it comes to reopening now. We know there are dangers. We need to understand those dangers, and we need to work towards reopening. I would like to quote Frederick Douglass here. He says it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Now, you cannot give children back their childhood, which they have lost for the last 17 months. You cannot undo that trauma that they are going through in their homes, because a school is not just a place of learning. A school is a place which actually gives and supports these children with their socio-emotional development, with language skills. Because how much are parents actually talking to children at home? They're not. They're either instructing them or interrogating them. There are no conversations happening. And this is the age when the foundation of all these skills are laid. It's also very important to understand that, yes, we need to start reopening. I read somewhere, I'm sure Dr. Lakdawala will be the best person to tell about this, but I read somewhere that the protein that's required, that the COVID virus latches on to, is not that present in children. I may be wrong about that, but this is something that I read somewhere, that is what makes children less, victims of COVID. How long, Sumaya, how long are we going to keep children out of schools just for the fear? Because it's 17 months now. It doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere. This pandemic looks like it's here to stay. So with that, I think we need to learn to ride the waves. We need to take advantage of the lull period. The lull period that comes between two waves is when we should start reopening schools. And definitely, yes, the numbers are less when we reopen schools. We've reopened schools in Punjab. Even the preschools are open. Last time also, when we reopened them in November, we had 80% attendance in our preschools. This time when we have reopened, we've got about 73% attendance. So it's very important to understand that we have to get the confidence of the parents. And when I see educators on Facebook without masks, without social distancing, when I see adults, mothers, posting their photographs without masks, no social distancing, it's not going to get us the confidence from parents that if these adults can't wear their masks, how will they ensure that children are wearing their mask or maintaining social distancing in schools? So, it's all so tied up into this knotted thing that should we open, should we not open? I think we should just look at children and understand it is time to open. We will have to take baby steps because that's how things will start. It's not necessary that school has to be there every day. Okay, make it thrice a week. Make it twice a week if you are not comfortable with it. But start, because what's happening to children in homes is not very good. And I'm not talking only about the affluent class. I'm talking about our 70% of the children who don't attend private schools. They attend government schools. They have no access to learning, no digital learning, nothing. There are children who are being locked up in their homes while their parents go out to work because Anganwadis are closed, Balwadis are closed. It is a sad state of affair. I mean, think of this generation when it grows up. It's going to be a hardened generation without the life skills that they require. So definitely it is time for us to please rethink on opening, make a roadmap and start work on it rather than always say, oh, let's wait, oh, let's wait. How long are we planning to wait, by the way? And does anyone have an idea? Do any of the governments have an idea? 3 years, 4 years? Do you know, Sumaya? Early childhood is 3 years, which means nursery, junior, senior, 3 to 6 years. College is for 3 years, which means adults and children are losing out on a chunk of their life if we are not going to get serious about this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. In fact, Dr. Pandey, I'd like to address the question to you now. I mean, in India, we seem to, make large blanket decisions which apply to all. Like we had our first lockdown, it was a national lockdown. Now, even in states, we are doing this. I mean, is it time for India to bite the bullet? To say that we are in an education emergency right now and we need to reopen our schools and get our children back into school and learning?
Yes, Sumaya, thank you very much for bringing me in. 3 V's, let me talk about: virus, variant, and vaccination. These have scared us for the past 60 to 70 weeks, as you said. But the most unfortunate part of the whole story is that these 3 V's have given rise to the 4th V, and that is vacillation. Indecisiveness. We just cannot decide. And huge inertia we have developed about taking any biting the bullet kind of decision. Let me paint 2 or 3 statistics here. Number one, you said the lockdown has varied from 10 weeks to 70 weeks across the world, right? Now, even when the online, 100% online, the parental survey, according to McKinsey, says 60% of loss of learning has taken place. And during this period, where lockdown was as low as 10 weeks, as you say, there also the learning loss was 30%. You know why? Because of the grief, because of the fear, because of other interruptions, etc. So on an average, 50% of learning loss has taken place across. And then you bring in the factor that only 30% children have 100% access to digital education, and you just multiply the loss. And therefore, in our obsession to balance physical health, with the learning, we have brought in another risk in between, which doctor on the panel was saying, the emotional and mental health. And therefore, I think we have to keep these 3 things on the table: physical health risks, mental health risks, and the learning health risks. I think the physical health risk is greatly reduced. Okay. Somebody, one of your audience was asking, have we entered endemicity? Yes, we have entered, as said by Dr. Soumya Swaminathan 2 days ago, that in India, the transmission rates are towards the lowering side, and we may just have reached endemicity, which means we will have to live with the virus as we are living with many other cases, such as influenza. And therefore, we have to focus on learning. The children are learning. They're getting behind in mathematics, getting behind in reading, and this will accumulate. And if you continue to perpetuate this loss, we will be producing an entire generation which will be less contributing to the prosperity of the nation and their own. So under these circumstances, I think we have to begin the discussion. The fear must go out. It has become very easy, which doctor very, I think, remotely hinted at. But I think we have developed that inertia, and we are kind of suffering from withdrawal symptoms. Oh my God, the day we have to go to the school, we will have headache, we'll have body ache. How will we get up in the morning? And why to go and study in the classroom 6 hours in the school? Because we have become so comfortable. So I'm not trying to say that the risk is zero, but I'm trying to say the risk has come to a level where we can take a risk and bring children back to the school, because what they have missed not coming to the school is something just cannot be repaired. Even, the most hesitant parents, Sumaya, they are saying, we want our children to go back to school. A hands-on learning just cannot be replaced even by the high quality online learning. They know it, but a safe environment, hands-on learning, and a very good psychological comfort. This combination, I think, has to be brought on the table, in my opinion.
I think Dr. Pandey, very well put. We'll come back to some of the points you raised. Anuk, I'd like to quickly come to you now and ask you, how can the mind-boggling advances in technology, be used to empower education institutions, as well as to, allay a lot of parental fear about the risks that the virus poses children and young people?
Somewhere, that's a good question. See, like Dr. Lakdawala pointed out, that there is a receptor on the human cells that attracts the virus. It's called the ACE2 receptor. It's a receptor binding domain, and the virus has a positive charge. So our device basically breaks this mechanism by neutralizing the positive charge on the virus through photoelectrons and not through ionization. Ionization is harmful to health. It can produce ozone. So there is no concept of ionization in a product, but it does that. If it's a school and you put in all the classrooms, the bathrooms, a transmission from child to child will not happen. Child to parent, teacher will not happen. Teacher to child will not happen. And I think schools in Netherlands have already adopted this technology. We have multiple case studies in Netherlands, which we can share. In India, we've not had a chance because schools are still waiting for them to open. So when we have had such chat a few schools, they said, how do I know when to open? How should I invest in technology? But we really look forward to a dialogue here to see this is a safe product, which is not based on ionization, does not based on UV. It is not based on any other technology. It is absolutely a new technology, in a way very miraculous because built from grounds up, and it also takes care of the influenza. So obviously influenza also is a big endemic which affects children all the time. So if schools were to do that, then what would happen is that after a few months, it will be quite apparent that the schools that have it, they have been virtually absolutely no transmission, and the safety will be brought back to the children. So I think we are very happy to partner with schools to help them understand how it can be made safe, to help them communicate to their parents and all the other stakeholders, to help put the protocols. Because while we can want every protocol to be maintained, the social distancing, the hand sanitization, but children are children. You can't control them as robots. They will play, they will hug, they will do something. Okay, and that's why we can't take away their childhood, like that. But so if people do that, as somebody forgets doing something or is not very careful, the transmission won't happen. And that's what we really want. So how can we look at that is going to be very, very critical. Now, schools have already, like I said, bought in Netherlands, bought in UAE, unfortunately not bought in India because they've not started. But we have, over 25,000 installations, many large factories, buildings, offices, and we have many cases where transmission has not happened. Even hospitals like which hospital, which have said that even by putting a few devices in the COVID, 75% drop happened in the transmission, even a very high distinct space. So I think luckily there is a technology which is available, which is safe for children, and some schools are using it globally. And I think partnering with the community will be the most critical to really get the confidence back, not only of the school, the children, but also the parents.
Great. Thanks, Alok, and congratulations on this mind-boggling, Indian produce technology. We are very proud of it.
Yeah, I think I had just one line here, but I think the thing goes to the inventor and the scientist. I think is a remarkable person, Dr. Raja Vijay Kumar. So I will just take your congratulations and pass on to him. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Neha, quickly to you now. Neha, parents, seem very divided, like Dr. Mufi was saying, Swati was saying, parents seem very divided on the issue of reopening of schools. What do you think are their fears and concerns? Do they doubt the preparedness of schools to follow COVID safety protocols? And also I'd like to point out that, parents also seem to have like kind of a Dr. Jekyll and Hyde attitude. They are, crowding all the malls with their kids in tow, and all the hill stations, but they don't want to send them to school, which seem to be a lot more safer places than these venues. Your views of parents.
Okay, so thank you, Sumaya, for the question, and good evening, everybody. It was quite insightful to hear it from subject experts, and it was quite good to know from Dr. Mufi that what exactly is happening on the scientific advancement. Even the technological product, what you guys just showed in the video, was quite a welcoming change. I'm sure all the parents like me would have been happy seeing it. But having said that, I come from a different school here. Maybe, of course, I've been a very strong bridge, thanks to Dr. Swati ma'am, that I've been a bridge between parents' voice and educators, and I understand both the sides. But here I'll speak more from a community angle, representing 500,000 mothers when we've conducted certain survey within our community to read about parent sentiments. I don't know what studies and surveys talk about loss of learning. I totally respect that. But I think as the parent community voice, I think the biggest loss is not just loss of learning, but loss of life. And as parents, we are scared. We are skeptical. Of course, Sumaya, I'll come to your second part also of the ironic, constraint of taking them otherwise outside. But having said that, the first thing is understanding parent sentiment. Like when I did a survey across 12 chapters we have 500,000 mothers, out of which 12 cities in India have tier 1 and tier 2 cities. the ratio between the survey results was little different, wherein we asked parents if they're ready to send their kids to school. And it's a very recent survey. 58% of the parents, especially mothers sitting in cities like Mumbai, Delhi, metro cities, are wanting to send their kids to school, but only after vaccination. Only after vaccination has come in picture. Whereas 12% of them, are okay sending them right now if the schools are following the COVID protocols and taking care of all the measures. Whereas 30% in, these tier 1 cities are still not in any hurry. They are saying, let this year be the online learning year, because any which way last year, Swati ma'am knows that we were on a lot of panels where we were advocating the concept of online learning. We asked parents to adapt to this change, and when parents are readily accepting it and they are now in sync with the teachers on online learning platform, suddenly we're asking them to go back to school. Having said that, nowhere we are saying that we do not want to send our kids to school. It will be like a savior for mothers like me who are working moms to send our kids to responsible experts and teachers who can do a better learning. But having said that, my fear is quite large. My fear is quite strong, especially if you look at the scientific researchers and the doctors statements which are releasing day in and day out. There's no consistency on it. See, this is all coming amidst the apprehension that the next wave of pandemic, like as per the rumors, will affect children more. Whereas, of course, I know the scientists have dismissed, saying that this speculation has no scientific backing. But, India is a country, or rather we all as a country are a country of WhatsApp forwards, and not really a scientist, proofs, trusting a scientist proof, which is very ironical. So I think the parents are still scared. I am still apprehensive. We all are still apprehensive of sending back to school. Coming to the second part, and as Swati ma'am rightly said, and I advocate that concept of hers, that what parents do is what children follow. So our parents, when parents are taking their kids to vacations, to public crowded places, who is taking up the responsibility of that child? We ourselves are responsible for taking our children outside. We feel that we are totally in control when we are parking them in a hotel room, whereas we don't know, as Dr. Mufi rightly said, that we don't know if my school's washroom is equipped to really take care of my kids. If my school's transport, like if they're traveling by bus, are they safe there? So whenever, like I always have one thing against school, and I'll again mention it on this forum, that whenever I pay for a school picnic, I get a consent from the school saying that it's not the school's responsibility if something happens to the kid. Why shouldn't be the school's responsibility? If I go outside with my kids on a vacation or on a holiday, I take care of my kid. I am responsible there. But when I'm putting my precious children in your hands, I think the technology video, what you showed me, I'm at peace looking at it, because I feel, of course, the technological advancement, our scientists, our doctors are doing a wonderful job of making sure that the parents have that confidence. But today, if you ask me today, we are not prepared, especially amidst all these festivities, amidst all this, schools having a very inconsistent approach. I really liked one idea of Dr. Swati Popat, and she knows I'm her fan, of this lull period advantage. Are we taking baby steps, or there'll be one day our school will send a notice and ask us to go back to school. What option do we have? Have you done any pilot studies? Are you prepared in the lull period? What confidence is school giving us? Nothing as of now. So I, as a parent's voice, do not really agree to send my kids to school till the time you really show me that confidence and empower your schools to prepare so that I can hand over my precious kids to you.
Okay, some valid points raised. We'll try and get our panelists to answer some of those concerns. Dr. Mufi, I'd like to come to you now. First, if you could, address one or two concerns which Neha pointed out, especially of how can schools, ensure children's safety from a medical point of view. Of course, from the few cases which you said earlier when you spoke, you said that when in Mumbai schools reopened, I also read that there were a few cluster outbreaks. So how prepared should schools be to deal with these kind of emergencies? And also, what do you think that, what top 3 priorities of education institutions should be when they reopen?
I think what Neha said is probably a concern of any parent who's probably listening in, or any parent who's wanting to send their kids to school, including myself. Because fighting COVID, I would want my kids to be protected. But having said that, what I want to say is we've got to, Dr. Ashok Pandey very clearly said, we've got to learn how to live with this virus. The day we realize that, the sooner we'll get back to normalcy. somewhere we'll have to get back to normalcy because this virus ain't going anywhere. Yeah, the V's, like he mentioned, the variations. Right now, in the second wave, we were badly affected by the Delta, and probably the genesis of Delta came from India. So that's why I don't see a third wave coming around, in my own personal humble opinion, until there's a complete different variant that comes across into India, which is as deadly as the problem Delta. Whatever you want to call it later, we can call it. But right now, I think zero surveys also have shown that more than 25% of the 10 to 19 year or under 25 kids have already got antibodies to this virus. So at some point, they were probably exposed, whether they knew about it or not, that is besides. What the schools need to take in order is safety. We need to convince parents that it's completely safe in whichever way we are doing. I think the one basic step is by vaccinating all our staff, right? I do understand completely, and I've seen some questions on the group, that vaccination is not 100% safe, but nothing is, right? There's no guarantee with anything. You don't have Pfizer, Moderna, mRNA vaccines coming into India because they're not ready to take any responsibility. The government just said you take. Everywhere else, they've signed MOUs saying we won't take any responsibility. So who's going to take? It will always be the parents asking the schools, are you ready to take the onus and 100% safety? There's no 100% safety, come on. I mean, there's nothing. Before people get surgery done by me, there's no 100% guarantee. Or if you get into a flight, there's no 100%.
What is the 100% safety? We could be knocked down by a bus, right?
Yeah. But what I want to tell parents is that, are you going to keep your kids at home, not allow them to celebrate Diwali, not allow them to celebrate Eid, not allow them to celebrate all the festivals? Raksha Bandhan just went by. Did you ensure that the kids were masked when they were tying Rakhi to their brothers or their sisters or anything? And if you've not done that, then I think you lose the prerogative of asking the school, what all precautions are you taking? Are you not sending them to religious places, which I believe are correctly shut because they are the ones which are mostly populated? I think we need to start. I personally do believe as a parent, we need to be careful. I think Neha's quite correct that yes, we need to take baby steps. And what Dr. Swati said is baby steps during this lull. I think this lull is going to last. I think this, like Dr. Swaminathan said, we are in the endemic phase, and God forbid we don't have any further dreaded variation of this virus. We'll have to learn. We don't have the vaccines yet. We don't have Pfizer. We don't have Moderna. So we can't vaccinate our kids from 12 years and above. Zydus Covid Cadila has just come in. They've applied for government nod for vaccinating kids. The Bharat Covaxin has done trial studies, but the results are not yet out. So if you were to ask me, am I going to vaccinate my kid with one of these vaccines? No, not yet, until I don't see phase 3 trials. Phase 3 trials have only been proven on mRNA vaccines. So yes, we can start. We also do know, so I like what you told me first, that the kids who are the youngest are the least likely to be badly affected by it. In fact, my recommendation to the CM was completely opposite of what the task force had recommended. I said, let's open it up for the younger lot, under 5, and then go from 5 to 10, and then open it up for the 10. 8 to 10, classes 8 to 10 actually are kids who can study at home. Under 5 cannot study at home. How much of attention span, y'all are teachers, y'all will know, how much of attention span can a 6-year-old have in front of a computer? He starts developing glasses way before any one of us has developed glasses. And
in fact, Dr. Murthy, I would like to add on to what you just said, that during our surveys also parents of young kids wanted the schools to open up. So I think you have touched the right chord, they want their kids to go there because they are struggling with the online learning still. So I agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
But okay. I was a single voice against the entire task force who said, open it up for the younger lot rather than opening it up for the older.
No, doctor, I think Swati and I, both of us in favor of the same, opening it for the younger kids.
No, in fact, medical evidence has said that. I mean, Dr. Guleria, she said that, open your preschools and primary schools further.
Absolutely.
So may I come in here?
The least risk, 12 and above are at some risk, whereas your younger children are least at risk. But Dr. Murthy, government does its own thing. They have their own experts, in-house experts in quotations, who do as they like.
This is one expert they didn't listen to, though I advised them on COVID. But in terms of school, they say we'll listen to the older guys who were going more on standard followed norms rather than you thinking out of the box. They thought out of the box in terms of setting up jumbo facilities and listen to me there, but not in terms of this. One more point I just wanted to add is what Alok said is let's use technology, guys. I mean, for whatever, even if it increases 5% more safety, why would schools want to risk their kids? Yes, he's got enough data there, scientifically proven data, but I think we should look at enhancing our safety because mothers like Neha will then get that added layer of extra safety. It's like a pilot before taking off. He does his double checks and triple checks. We look at all our consents before we operate. I think that additional, if it's not too added a cost, Alok, I think you can reduce the cost for the schools, especially in the rural schools. Please do that and help them because they can ill afford technology in terms of online learning. You know, they're missing out on midday meals, these kids. They're missing out on social, this thing. So I think rural kids is where we need to concentrate mostly because that's the impact where it's going to be maximum. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Dr. Murthy. Swati, I'd like to quickly come to you now and ask you, what are your and the Early Childhood Association's top 3 ideas to empower preschools to reopen safely?
So number one, when Neha spoke about whose responsibility, I also saw another parent type, whose responsibility. See, we need to understand that when schools reopen, they are not going to give your child a COVID injection. If your child gets COVID, it will be from another child, which means it is another parent who was not responsible. So it is very, very important for all of us to understand like this, I can keep on passing the buck. It will never stop. It will be a merry-go-round and the buck will never stop. And I think what has saved our country is that it's important for all of us to take responsibility. So my advice to parents is, if you don't want to send your children, if you're not comfortable, nobody is forcing you. But that doesn't mean just because you don't want to send, the schools should not open for the other children. Number 2, schools will have to learn hybrid schooling. You were only talking about hybrid learning till now. Sumaya, there will be a lot of parents who till 2025 will not be comfortable sending their children to school. And there will be parents who will want to send their children tomorrow. So schools will now have to start working on hybrid schooling, which means even when physical school opens, schools will have to offer online learning for those parents who are still not comfortable sending their children to school. So this is the change in mindset, which I have predicted last year, that schooling is going to change forever. Don't think of school now as only a physical building. You will have to cater to 2 different mindsets in parents, and you will have to start having both to offer the parents. Physical school and online school together, not as an option. So that is something that educators, school owners will have to start working on if they really want schools to start reopening, because otherwise one section will decide and schools will never open. Number 2, we need to train parents and teachers. Do parents know what they are supposed to do when the child comes home, where they are supposed to remove their clothes, how they are supposed to sanitize them? I mean, look at doctors. Doctors survived the greatest wave and they had their families also, right? So it is very, very important to understand how did they survive. They had certain habits and routines that they developed, which kept them safe. We need to teach parents about this. You cannot see in this thing about Neha, if you're going to say whose responsibility, nobody will take responsibility. Parents need to teach their children when they come home what to do, what not to do in school. Schools need to also teach children and parents about air gulp. You know, when you wear a mask for more than 40 minutes, sometimes even for 20 minutes, you are gasping for breath. You want to remove that mask. And children will face that. You will have to teach them how to take that air gulp in a safe manner. There are schools abroad who have taught their children, face a wall, go away from everybody, remove your mask a little and take that air gulp. So, these are simple basics that you will have to prepare parents, teachers, and everybody for. Yes, fine. All the technical aspects you will take care of, like vaccinations. You will put all the required safety measures in the school. But ultimately, you will have to work on the human part of it also. How are we going to prepare the mindsets of parents, of teachers, and of everybody in the ecosystem and stakeholders called a school? Everybody will have to be part of it. Parents should not push for public transport like school buses right now, because school buses are a hotbed of misbehavior. If you put your child in a school bus during this, your child will definitely come back with somebody else's mask. In fact, all the 20 children will have each other's masks, because that's what happens in a school bus. So I don't think school buses should start. First, we should take baby steps. Early Childhood Association has drafted safe reopening guidelines. We've put it up on our website. UNICEF supported it. In fact, Brazil, the government has taken our guidelines and translated it into the language of their country. We've also started a course, a training course for teachers to do this online training on safety aspects so that they understand every aspect. You know, safety has to move from a word to a feeling to something that you do in your school to bring the parents back.
Got it.
And I always feel it's time now. I love you, Dr. Lakdawala, for supporting schools, for supporting young children, because it is these young children who are suffering the most. And it's time for us to reopen with baby steps, reopen with bubbles. But it's time to all of us to have that courage now to stand for our children.
Yes, you're right. Dr. Pani, quickly to you now, I want to ask you, how do schools, and education institution put in those checks and balances to ensure, these safety protocols are followed? Because, education institutions are also infamous for not following rules and regulations, especially when it comes to, child safety. We've had many incidents of accidents, etc. in schools. How can these checks and balances be followed?
Yeah, Sumaya, a couple of things, let me tell you. When we talk today, we are in August 2021. We are thinking with the mind of March 2020. You see, March 2020, we had no idea what this entity called virus is all about. Today, we know a lot. We know the protocols, we know how exactly to respond, we know how to behave. Most of the adults, particularly in the schools, are vaccinated fully, right? That is the first safety measure. And then this masking, sanitization, distancing, spending more time outdoors than indoors, not attending schools when even you have the mild symptoms or any infection. I think these are the things that we have to take care of. Swati said very rightly, it's not a quarrel of who will be responsible. You see, Neha mentioned about it, the schools are saying we are not responsible. Just a friendly, response to that. In our schools, my experience at least is more children get hurt and fractured at home than in the school. But have you ever heard that any parent suing herself because her child got a fracture in the house? But a child getting fracture in the school, and if you say, no, I'll take you to the court, what do you want the schools to do? So let us not talk of very extreme accidental emergencies. Here we are talking of a whole lot of protocol and a whole lot of bringing that relationship back, which is missing for the past 20 months. And therefore, there is a fear, I agree, but let that fear not be blown out of proportion. There is a definite loss and fear of a study and mental health. Let us not undermine it, right? And therefore, with these protocols, and then we are not talking about what children have missed. And if they come to school, how teachers can compensate for a lot of things. So if you ask the children today, come, we will have a basketball match, without parental consent, 100% of them will come. So they want physical activities. They want extracurricular activities. They want mentoring. They want counseling. They want to spend time with the teachers. Teachers are prepared to give them extra time. I think we have to find a means and ways as to how we bring those things back, right? So today, Soumya Swaminathan was talking to college students 3 months back, and one child asked, how about the third wave? And she said that you are asking me as if you are going to celebrate the third wave. Come on, we can stop the third wave from coming if we follow the disciplines and protocols. So third wave is not like an army, sitting at our borders. Third wave is already here, but we have prevented it in a way. So I think what we have to do is that we have to think of the need of reopening the schools, take options and precautions. We are talking about the option of opening and not opening. And for whom? Only those who have this option. How about the 70% of the kids who do not have this option of sitting at home? I think our discussion should go beyond this discussion of options only for those who have the option to come to school or not to come to school. That is my case here.
Got it. Thanks, Dr. Pandey. Alok, quickly to you now. I want to
second,
ask.
Soumya, just 1 second. Dr. Mufi has to rush for a medical emergency. So can you just basically can say thanks to Dr. Mufi and let him go to attend his duty.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mufi. It was wonderful to have you on our panel. And before you go, I want to quickly ask you one question. How confident are you about this children's vaccine, which has been given a regulatory approval? Do you think that will push this case of reopening of schools faster?
I think if we don't get any surge of cases after Diwali, I think you won't need a vaccine to reopen your schools. Trust me, every government guy out there is going to open up the schools. So I just believe we need to get into the concept of shared or vicarious responsibility. We need to be responsible. Schools need to be responsible. The government needs to responsibly open it up in batches, in small bubbles, and see and test it. And then we'll all be safe. We need to get back to hugging our kids. We need to get back for kids to hug one another. I'm waiting for that world to happen. Please
in a very disciplined manner. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Mufi, for your valuable time. Thank you so much. And we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mufi.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Alok, I was coming to you, Alok, quickly for a question. Do you believe that industry has not spoken very powerfully and strongly in favor of reopening education institutions because the damage done in terms of learning loss will ultimately impact industry in terms of poor quality graduates and human resources and hit industrial productivity?
Yeah, see, you're right. Where higher education is concerned, it's going to have a tremendous impact. And I think the people who are affluent and can give their children any kind of education, all access to technology, I think they're a privileged and I think a very small fraction of the population. If you look at children who are not studying, they just dropped out, they are not able to manage anything, they don't have access to technology. And that part actually, is the most defined. For example, the people who work in the factories, they are the ones who produced. The people who are sitting in corporate offices are actually working from home. And we are all eating, we are, ordering on Amazon and picking up or online things and enjoying whatever we want to eat or get it at our home, or a item we want to buy or technology we want to buy. It's because somebody out there is actually making it. And they can't make it from home. They have to go to the factory. All of us have survived because doctors and nurses and everybody had to be at the hospital. They couldn't work from home. So I think the whole world is in this mess. And there are a lot of people who are supporting us, building technology so that our children can use it at home, processing our food that we can get it, delivering to us. And many of them don't have access to technology in that income group that they can come as. So if all this workforce 2-3 years does not get educated and trained, industry has a big thing to lose. It's not small. And the level of unemployment and issues create more crime. And then we'll say this is an unsafe area for us. So I think for us to work together, look at the society at a much bigger holistic level, and not look at ourselves. Obviously, our children are at a risk when they go to schools. And I think that's why, and whatever we say, it's whether it's about this thing, about technology or vaccines or anything else, experiencing is believing. So if, we can talk forever, but unless we have a large number of schools start, people do things in a safe manner, they adopt technology like ours or don't adopt, but in a way children are safe, and an experience shows us, then things will happen on a widespread. It's not going to be a magic moment one day where we feel that everything is safe and we should just go back to school. I think it's going to just come into us slowly. It's going to come out of experience. Everything happens out of experience. It's what we feel as human beings. Okay. And we have to start with that. So it's not a magic button that will open one day. So I think having this approach that we should not start at all, but I think being intelligent, being understanding discreetly on what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. Obviously, as our company, we are very happy to work on, it's not about, if you look at, we are actually a social enterprise in India. Our cost structure and our charge is much lower. Globally, the product sells at 3x the price, okay? But India is actually sold virtually at cost. We are happy to work with schools. It's not, I think saving a child's education and future is more important for us to then make a profit. I think that's more important to us. So we are happy to work with the community. We're happy to, give more machines to, devices to schools that are willing to start. We are waiting for people to start actually, to give, to work with the community to get that. And only the experience will show whether a device works or not, the schools. But schools have to start, irrespective of whether they buy a Shah Rukh fan or not. It is absolutely the most important thing that needs to happen. As a parent, I feel it. As a human being, I feel it.
Thanks, Alok. Neha, quickly to you, I want to come and ask you a quick question. This whole issue of responsibility, my own viewpoint is one of the reasons why we're into the world's longest lockdown of schools is because the government doesn't want to take responsibility.
Yeah.
So do you believe that governments need to devolve the power to reopen schools upon institutional managements and parents? Because these are, the virus is a very local and localized transmission thing. So should these decisions be localized, and the institutions and parents should be empowered to make these decisions?
Yeah, I'm so glad, Sumaya, you asked me this question. And I think my take-home word today will be responsibility, because coming back to, my answer to question number 1 and also connecting it back to question number 2, when it comes to personal responsibility, I know that personal responsibility can lead to national transformation. But eventually, the parents are taking up the responsibility on the home ground. We have been doing it since 18 months and we are ready to do it more. But if we are talking about reopening the school and empowering the school, as rightly mentioned by Alok, that we cannot deny that fact that school can be a breeding ground for kids to catch corona from each other, COVID from each other. But when I'm talking about that parent, Swati ma'am, who's a responsible parent, who's wearing the mask all the time, not going out or not when it's not needed, not really stepping out even for festivities, and making kids also understand the COVID appropriate behavior. This parent who has been so mindful and aware during these 18 months is now putting their kids into a school which is still not prepared, because the school has not taken up the responsibility the way parent has. I know Swati ma'am, I know Khuddaar School, I know the kind of initiative she launched, and there must be more educators like her who are taking these kind of initiatives for their school. But having said that, we are talking about a mass level. We are talking about rural India. Are we really preparing these schools to take up a larger responsibility when they're questioning a parent's individual responsibility? That's my question now. Second, coming to Sumaya's your question, which is very related to first question. In India, unfortunately, the governance and the educational institute do not really leave much to our parents, blankets or parents' decisions. We are bound to follow a notice which is overnight sent to us without really doing a furthermore research. I want to understand, does this decision of opening up school should lie with governance as a central decision, like with the state government, or it should come from individual schools to school, like maybe, someone like Dr. Swati, if she's spearheading a school, I know my kids are in good, safe hands. Or it should come to a parent's discretion who has been following all the COVID norms and today is left with no choice but to put their kids in a school which is still not prepared. So I think it should individually be as per my consent, as per my opinion, it should be a parent's decision to decide. And I will again come back to Swati ma'am's quote here, that are schools prepared for hybrid learning? I'm a mother of twin boys. Maybe one kid of mine is a little more prone to infections, and I do not choose to send him to school because he might even impact other kids. And maybe the other twin son wants to go to school. And even I'm prepared as a parent to send him to school. But are we as schools prepared for hybrid learning? Or my other kid who's not going to school is again left off without a loss, or with a loss of learning. So these question marks are relevant. If we are leaving these decisions to parents, of course, parents can be more mindful. They can decide on individual level. They can decide on the age of their kids, the schools kids are in, and then accordingly take a call. But are we ever given a choice? No, we are never given a choice. I would like to again highlight a very important agenda, which was a talk of the town last year, when schools were wanting parents to pay the fees and parents were not willing to pay the fee, which was very, very disheartening on the parents' point, because schools were running an institution which had some fixed fee. So I was advocating on panels, so I'm inviting parents to pay the fee. But having said that, there were some parents who couldn't afford to pay those fees because they left their jobs. So are we just integrating or putting everyone in the common bracket, or are we dealing with this on an individual basis? My appeal as a parent's voice would be to please give us also a right to decide. Please give schools a right to decide. And governance can definitely have a broader guideline. Swati ma'am, I'll talk to you about one school today. When they saw my notice that I'm coming on this panel, one mother messaged me saying that her preschool of a 2.5-year-old is open and operating out of a flat. Imagine, ma'am, such an unorganized sector. Like who's really monitoring these schools? Like I was talking to Swati ma'am, and I came to know only about it 1.5 years back that the preschool do not have a structured guidelines. I think it's high time we talk about those broad guidelines rather than getting into the nitty-gritties of it. Because if we create or correct the system, the output has to come in the good way. So that's my point, Sneha. I know I might be hard for some people,
No,
but that's
Neha, I think you raised a very important point. For your information, the government didn't consult even, forget about parents, even education institutions and schools before they shut down schools overnight. Am I correct, Swati? Nobody was consulted. It was.
And Sumaya, just today I shared in one of the groups, because a school owner from Pune wrote to me that, ma'am, all schools in our locality are open. Can we open? And I told him, I said, government has not given permission. Please take permission from your local municipal authority. But if we as educators don't follow rules, then all the best to the next generation. Because
Fatima, I'll add on to your point. Today, I came to know about one school. Again, Sumaya, because I'm sitting within the parents and the community is quite vocal. There's one school which has asked kids to come to school 9th and 10th standard, but without the school uniform. Where are we heading, guys? Where are we heading?
Exactly. But Neha, the ball lies in both courts. Why are parents sending children to such schools, knowing that the school is breaking protocol, knowing that the school is cheating the government? The parents are willing to send their children to such schools?
I owe it completely. I owe it. I'm saying everybody has their own responsibility.
Actually, Swati and Neha both, I think the mood of the nation now is we've had enough of schools being closed 16, 17 months. Everyone wants it reopened with, let's take baby steps one step at a time. And I think we've got lots of questions, Pavan.
And communication, communication is the key. How transparent are you to communicate with parents? Schools and parents have to join hands. It has to be a transparent, confident communication. The gap has to be bridged to have that confidence of parents in the school, and schools to have that confidence in parents.
Thanks.
Now, Bhavin Shah, CEO of Education World.
Dr. Pandey needs to.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I missed that. Dr. Pandey, you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to excuse. So, Bhavin, if you have something for me, you can ask me.
I'll have then this question, which was actually wanted to pose to Dr. Swati, but probably because this was a little bit diplomatically or politically connected. And this is actually from Facebook, and the person was Swati saying, a delay in reopening of school, is it psychological, scientific, or political? So you may answer that, and sir, you can then leave.
I think delay is indecisiveness. I said vacillation. Okay. Now that indecisiveness, of course, one is that we have already debated for 1 hour that we don't want to take responsibility. And doctor who left the panel said that let us co-own the responsibility. So this vacillation comes out of indecisiveness, lack of sense of responsibility, and misplaced priority, blowing up one issue, undermining other issue. All I am saying is that let us put them on the level playing pedestal and then take the risk which emanates out of that. So what are we more concerned in? That we want 2 months delay and 2 years of lagging behind? Or we want to take a bit of a risk, as we have discussed, baby steps, and then try and fill the gap which is already perpetuating? I think that is where my answer lies.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pandey, and thank you very much for staying with us.
Thank you.
Long. I know you have to.
Dr. Pandey, it's always a pleasure.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Swati, this is a comment, or I don't know what should I treat that, and this is from Mr. Ashok. This says that stop online, people will come offline. Can we do that? What's the comment on that? It's like the Indian hack, that stop online, people will automatically come offline.
Come offline. But then again, we would be doing an injustice to the children, which is why we are fighting for the school reopening. That why should children pay the price for a decision that the adults should have the guts to take? Because coming to your previous question, I think it's a total political decision, because see, parents have always been treated as the vote bank by governments, and they will always listen more to the voice of parents. And parents right now don't have the trust. So it is again, the onus comes back to us on educational institutions. If you want governments to open, put your trust, get parents to trust you, so that parents will go and put the pressure on the government to reopen. This is the only way it's going to happen. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. I would also like to mention a word, a German word. It's called Einstellung, which means that when you think only in one way, when you think there is only one solution to every problem, and you stop thinking about other solutions. I think governments are right now having Einstellung.
You are right. I still, it's a bit tongue twister, but I believe in that word. Thank you very much. My last maybe comment and a question to Neha would be, would there be, like the moms group can start some kind of positive circulars, propaganding a lot of awareness and information? Because I think so in the whole summary, which I feel it's a matter of understanding. Means yes. There is nothing about passing the buck or you take responsibility, I take responsibility. It's everyone's understanding that has to match that wavelength, match that environment, and also create positive environment about it. The concerns are there. Means virus is here, it's going to be there. Concerns always would be there. Means you would be more, your group or largely the parents are concerned for virus, but I may have various other concerns that Dr. Mufi told about the mental anxiety. There are 1,000 concerns which are related to virus, but there can be an understanding between, like, people who are educated, people who are scared, people who are really not aware, or they are just being the part of the WhatsApp university. So can there be a movement of awareness, positive awareness, to take this baby step and collaborate in this lull period where both institutions, that is the parental institution and the education institution, can bridge gap?
Yeah, I agree with you, Bhavin. As you rightly mentioned that, and Swati ma'am also very truly said that if, parents are prepared, parents have that trust on the educational institute. And in fact, parents have that trust on the schools. That's the reason we are with you. And we're standing with you throughout, because we entrust our children with you. And year on year, we do that. So we have a lot of faith. Only thing is, because this pandemic, this last 2 years have been very difficult for everybody. If we really, make some impactful communication through communities, I think we can make that difference. Communities on every level, communities like mine, communities on a, say panchayat level to a community on a very large level. If we can have communication with confidence and care, I think that, we can really win the ground. In spite of just sending one day notice that tomorrow onwards the kids have to come school, we should have a voting done with parents. We should involve them in decision making. We should hear them out. How many schools are doing it? In fact, I was talking to so many of my friends about different school behaviors. One school abruptly has started classes for 9th and 10th. One school has taken a voting and the voting has gone in parents' favor, so they've not done it. I think schools on an individual level can give that confidence. And as Bhavin, you rightly said, and I'm again re-quoting that it's not, it's not just one, group or strata's responsibility. It is the time to co-own the responsibility. Because I know the schools, governors, and we, all of us want our kids to be protected. Kids should be kept first. And I think if all of us have the larger mission of protecting our children, why the journey is so different? Why the paths are so different?
No, so Neha, in that way, I think so. In that way, that's the reason communication is the key. Right, yeah, communication is the key.
And communication with confidence and care also. The three C's are very important. Give us that confidence. So I still remember when educators like you all come on panel and you discuss these relevant points with us. I go back and communicate the same to my community because you've given me that confidence. You've given me some answers I was looking out for. But there are some parents who are never even, their questions are never heard. Their questions are never heard.
No, I get that. Yeah. No, thank you very much. I think
I'd like to just add one thing.
Yeah,
I just wanted to add one thing as a parent. I think I have been very fortunate to have my daughter study in a school which was a community. And I think some of the things like because this 12 years is a long time in a school and parents may go through ups and downs, somebody may lose a job, and they would have parents who said, just give additional money and we'll put it in a, as a trust fund, and whoever parents, don't have the money, and no child ever left the school without this thing. It was a Krishnamurti school. And the community sense and every decision was discussed. So you always felt part of the family. I think there are some best practices that are there. True. I think if Neha and all the parents and the various schools could look at best practices from across the globe, and actually if we could use this opportunity to even build this community even stronger at every school level. There's not a level of distrust that they only want the fee and they want to start and not take care of this, and the vice versa. It will need a lot of true, honesty and some level of discussion happening and the barriers to break in. I think this could be a foundation for a very long-term change, which could go far beyond the pandemic. Pandemic will go away. But if we could do this, I think as parents and teachers and school communities and students, as to build really a strong family, because it's really a family for, the 12 years the children parents are there. And if we can do that, then I think many of these questions that we are very wondering about, that we think differently is going to be, we may not agree on everything, but I think the comfort will be there that all of us mean well for each other. And I think the involvement of the parent is equally important. I think through the process, it's not only children have to learn from the school when we become a parent. I think we have more to learn as parents on how to manage children. I think that interaction with the school, interaction with that also creates a forum. And that is true for teachers also. Teachers have to learn as much as children have to learn about themselves and how to be the right guides. So I think it's the education is a very fascinating subject. I think all of us are passionate, whether we are educators or not. We are very passionate about this because it impacts all of us. And I think it's a good way to make a start. I think discretion is required. We need to make starts in areas we all agree in, even for the timelines we agree in, even if it's a hybrid model. But I think the stalemate has to be broken. That's what I believe.
Thank you very much. I think so. Psychocant team is noting down. A lot of people are asking about the email ID, the feedback, and Mr. Alok, you have been favorite. A lot many people are giving praises. So Sumya, to me, this particular session is going to go into season 2, 3, and 4. Probably we'll again call all the OTT platform, because this reopening and the technological help needs larger discussion, continuous discussion, more stakeholders to be involved. Probably, Alokji, we would suggest saying more of this session should be coming forward, and next time we should have some parent, real-time parent concern and parent to be also a part of this panels and discussion, so that the awareness is more created. So thank you very much, Sumya. I have clubbed many questions and done it, but this is going to go on, and that's the reason I was telling season 2 should be there.
We'll put the questions together and we'll try and get them answered individually from our respective panelists. We'll try and do that. we'll try and create some forum where we can answer them. Obviously, because of time limit constraints, we can't be able to take all your questions, but let's keep the dialogue going. We can keep it going on our Facebook page, Education World India Facebook page, and we can have many of your answers out there. But before we go and I give my vote of thanks and do a little summing up, may I have a video played, Education World team?
We had to let go of some of our best people.
We had big expansion plans, but we had to hit the stop button.
When will we and our students be able to go back to school?
People were even scared of entering our store.
Work from home is not normal. I miss going to office and meeting my colleagues.
2020 was a difficult year for businesses. But while businesses come in different sizes, safety shouldn't. Introducing the ShycoCan, the world's first proven technology to protect you and your business from the coronavirus, with up to 99.9% efficacy indoors. Let's bring life back to normal and normal back to business. Visit ShycoCanCorp.com today. ShycoCan, now available on Amazon India.
I hope, Alokji, I think so. After this ad, we should have only the ad for education institution. Whomsoever is going to sign up, you should do video on education institute so that more education institute can take benefit.
Yeah, we're waiting for them to start.
Alokji, I must say that you convinced me to buy at least 3 for my private use.
Thank you very much. We look forward to doing a pilot. We are going to do. We hope to do a pilot in some of your schools.
In fact, Alokji, I was also just about to ask you the same thing, that why not on individual level also?
Sure.
Not just B2B, but also to B2C.
Yeah, it is available for B2C. We're really happy. We want to protect everyone.
Absolutely.
Every room in my home has it. My dad is 89 years old. One of the nurses that was there tested positive. She was 12 hours with him. And the next day she said her husband was not well. We asked her to go back. 48 hours later, she had tested positive. This was wave 2. And my dad did not get it. So, so I think.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, what more proof it works?
Yeah. We've had hundreds of such stories from customers, not one. We've not had a single story which says transmission, but there are many people have gone and recorded and said they got saved. They spent a few hours with somebody at home or office who was COVID positive, and they got the call from them the next day that we met you yesterday, but we are COVID positive, and they escaped. So
what a great in India success story, Alok. Congratulations. I mean, this is
I think it's a fantastic thing from the scientists. I think hats off to him to have to think about this even before pandemic hit in. But he thought that viruses are getting too much, and maybe influenza. He actually built it for influenza, and that itself is a big problem. But it's true with coronavirus. So thank you, everyone. Okay.
Wonderful.
Really. So what I'll do is that I'll come back and with all the details to all the participants. Any questions that are there, we're very happy to share all the test reports with all the education institutions, with NDAs. We can share you all the reports of safety, of efficacy, CE certificates, that that everything has been tested in this product. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, ShycoCan, for giving us this opportunity. Thank you, Alok, Swati, Neha, our Dr. Emmanuel, Dr. Mufi, and Dr. Pandey. I think we've had a great, stimulating discussion. And the most important thing, like as we've, I think I can safely say that we are unanimous, and we've managed to convince Neha also that schools and education institutions need to be reopened with adequate safety protocols. We need to take, like Swati said, we need to take baby steps. Listen, guys, if we don't grow, we are going to die. So we have to give our children the opportunity to learn, to play, to be happy, to be able to hug. And we do this with adequate safety protocols and use the latest available technology to get our 300 million children and youth back in school, college, and learning safely. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you.
Sumaya.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Bhavin.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye,
Yeah.
Neha.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.